The Lottery, Bloody Billion. Chapter 1. The Announcement. The first screen lit up over the city like a grin with a power source, blue, white, and hungry, biting into the night. It wasn't a billboard so much as a verdict you could read from 5 blocks away. The letters rolled across the glass with ceremony. The lottery returns. Bloody billion. It didn't matter what neighborhood you stood in. By the river where warehouses breathed out metal breath, under the snarl of overpasses where the concrete kept secrets, or on the crowded blocks where music leaked from doorways, everyone saw it. Phones tilted up like sunflowers. Somebody whooped. Somebody else crossed themselves like that could edit the terms. Rook watched from a bus bench with no route number posted, a bench that had become a rumor about public transit rather than a stop. The seat had that hard municipal curve that told you comfort was not a priority. His coat was older than the bench, army surplus green rubbed shiny at the elbows, the cuffs frayed into thread like the coat had been chewing its own nails. A duffel sat between his boots, zipper crooked, canvas softened by time and weather. He had a thermos balanced on his knee, and a folded cardboard sign tucked inside the duffel so strangers didn't have to read his hunger out loud. He didn't need the sign tonight. He needed distance. Distance from the chant that was warming up on the main drag like a crowd clearing its throat for violence. Distance from the kids rolling fat blunts with the swagger of ritual, sealing leaf with spit and heat and talk. Distance from the way the city changed shape when money was promised to the desperate. "Look at that, big man," a voice called, smoke riding the syllables like it paid rent. "History." Rook didn't turn right away. He let the smoke arrive first, the sweet thick wrap, the deep plant center, the lighter's iron scent still hanging. He turned when the voice got close enough to cast a shadow across his boots. Dane was grinning down at him with a blunt that looked like a cigar and a hoodie that screamed in neon letters. Dane's face had that kind of handsome that slept badly and laughed too much. You could see both on the surface. "You love to narrate," Rook said deadpan. "You love to pretend like you ain't listening." Dane reached out the blunt. "Participation trophy." Rook took it between forefinger and thumb, held it for a second like he was weighing something heavier, then pulled slow. The draw pried his chest open with a soft hand. He exhaled up and away, watching the blue-white screen smear itself in the haze. "Still rigged," he said, handing it back. "Everything's rigged," Dane said, almost happy about it. "Question is, you play. Or you get played with the corner kiosk dinged as if it had heard its cue. It didn't look like much, just a metal cabinet with a touch screen, 2 cameras nobody mentioned, and a slot that could spit out luck or their best imitation of it. The line at the kiosk had tripled since the first flash. People held their places with elbows and eyebrows. A pair of lovers argued in whispers about whether to spend rent on chances, and each time they said rent, it came out like a joke no one enjoyed. The screen on the sky rolled again, throwing new lines like scripture. 5 winners. Faces everywhere. 1 million per confirmed kill of a winner. The last survivor, after 48 hours, claims 1 billion. The crowd read it out loud in broken pieces like a fever dream sermon. A camera van glided in and popped an antenna like an insect flexing. Media personalities did what they do best. Pretended to be part of this block for 90 seconds. Microphones replaced cigarettes in more than one hand. A drone drifted into the cooler night air, blinking the way mechanical bugs blink when the producer likes the shot. Rook capped his thermos. He didn't need the coffee anymore. The city was enough caffeine. He could feel the shift happening under his boots, how the promise made everyone rearrange themselves a little, like furniture before company. Some men straightened their backs, because a billion pays for posture. Some women adjusted hair that needed no adjustment, because it's good to be seen right before you're seen. Children hopped on the balls of their feet, high on borrowed adult energy, shouting the word billion like it could be eaten. Dane took another long pull and grinned around the smoke. "You going to get a ticket, or you going to do that veteran mystical thing and haunt the block till morning?" I'll haunt the block, Rook said. The corner of his mouth moved. Traitor. And then I'll get a ticket. Dane laughed, the kind of laugh that made other people loosen up just to be near it. There he is. The poet's soldier. Let's go, OG. Let's touch the machine and ask it who we are. Rook stood. His knees made a quiet argument that he ignored. He slid the duffel strap onto his shoulder, felt the weight the way you do when it's familiar enough to be accounted for, but not loved. He and Dane crossed to the kiosk, finding their place in the slinky of bodies. The line moved in small confessions. People got close to the glass, blinked at their own reflection, and said yes to things they hadn't read. Some kissed the screen like it was a relic and their lips might count as a signature. Some stared at the terms as if staring were a negotiation. You could learn a lot about a city by how it queued for something that might kill it. When it was Rook's turn, he slipped a crumpled 20 into the slot. The machine took it like a satisfied stomach, beeped, and asked him if he was over 21. He tapped the icon. The camera nestled above the screen did whatever lenses do when they feel superior. The message popped up about terms. He tapped the lie that meant acceptance. Another about risk. He tapped the one that meant he understood, and maybe he did. Or maybe he understood that understanding wasn't the point. The printer inside the kiosk gave a cheerful whir, and a ticket slid out with the seriousness of a diploma. The paper was heavier than a receipt, lighter than a certificate, a middleweight promise. It said Region/Metro, a serial number that looked like a safes combination, and beneath that, a block of text that cleaned the blood off the rules and tried to sell them as a parade. Dane edged in with the curiosity of a thief and the manners of a friend. Let me peep. Rook folded the ticket once and slid it into his inner pocket. You'll curse it. I'll bless it, Dane shot back, already moving to the second kiosk. He fed it bills in a rhythm like a beat he recognized. We about to be rich, he said to the machine and to himself and to anyone in earshot. Rook stepped aside and listened. The city had ringtones tonight he hadn't heard in years. A cadence of chanting timed to police radio chatter. The fast, ragged talk of bookies trying to memorize names and faces before the paint dried. A preacher's voice over a portable speaker talking about Babylon and steaks and how Lot looked back and turned to salt, paired weirdly with a kid hawking wristbands that said Billy or bust for 5 apiece. Them cameras see you, Dane said when he rejoined him, eyes bright like a child who'd held fire and didn't burn. They see everybody, Rook said. Good, Dane said, and there was a hunger in the word that wasn't simple. Let 'em. A reporter in a coat that didn't zip because fashion had declared war on warmth moved through the line, smiling like a blade. How do you feel about the return of the lottery? She asked, holding a mic that glowed with branding. Alive, said a man whose hands said he worked with metal. For the first time in a minute. Blessed, said a woman with rhinestones on her cheekbones. My cousin got picked back in the day. Didn't end well. But I think this my year to flip the script paranoid, said a kid who couldn't legally be here but was anyway, chin high, hoodie low. If my face go up, I'm ducking. If my face don't go up, I'm hunting. The reporter made the face she made when the producer talked in her ear and asked for a cleaner line. So, hope, she suggested, and the kid shrugged in a way that made the drone lean closer. Rook drifted to the edge. He didn't like standing in a place that felt curated by other people's lenses. He preferred the cross streets, the margins where traffic made its own law, and you could see the exit points without turning your back. He kept his hands where he could feel them. He felt the edge of the ticket through the coat and wondered if paper could leave a bruise. He had told Dane the lottery was rigged because Rook believed most things were, systems designed to shake a population like a vending machine and make snacks fall out of the wrong slot. But he also knew another thing, an uglier one. Rigged games still crowned winners. They just made sure the win cost more to get. A vendor rolled by with aluminum trays and steam rising like friendly spirits. The smell leaked, pepper and onion and meat, cut with the leaf smoke and cheap cologne and wet concrete. A woman with two small kids tugged them away from the line and told them to hold hands and look up. They did both with the fierce focus of children wanting to obey because the night felt like a test. The screen in the sky pulsed again. The chant found itself without a conductor. Bloody billion! Bloody billion! Hands slapped hoods and shoulders. Bottles tapped poles in a trespassing rhythm that made an old instinct wake up in Rook's spine. A man near the back of the crowd snorted a quick rail off a phone screen, wiped his nose with the speed of experience, then lit a blunt so thick it could have been mistaken for a prop. His eyes changed tint. The people around him cheered like he'd scored. Dane eased back to Rook's side, glowing. He tucked his ticket into his back pocket and patted it like a flirt. "We in there." "We in something," Rook said. Dane elbowed him gently. "Don't act like you don't feel the drumline, old man. City got a beat tonight." "It always does," Rook said. "Tonight we just pretending we can choose the song." "That's wisdom talking," Dane said, approving for once. "I like it when you go sage." Rook almost smiled. He didn't because the screen cut to a stage somewhere far off, with lights that looked expensive, and an MC in a suit you could see your future in if you stood close enough. The MC threw his arms wide like the city was a body he wanted to hug without permission. "Tomorrow," he shouted, the sound system making his voice bigger than his chest. "We picked the 5. The crowd answered like they were in church, and the spirit had made an appearance. "Tomorrow," he purred, "we see who has a date with destiny." Phones went higher. Bodies went tighter. A couple kissed like they'd been spun by a DJ. Somewhere off to Rook's left, two men argued about whether a silencer actually silenced or just adjusted tone, and neither realized how loud they were discussing murder. And after that, the MC sang, "We hunt!" Rook felt his jaw tighten. He eased it with effort. He scanned without making scanning obvious, the mouths moving too fast, the hands moving too slow, the eyes that wanted to cut, the posture of people who'd already decided someone's blood was worth new sneakers. He cataloged exit points like beads sliding on a string. He knew where he'd go if his face lit the glass. He knew where he'd go if Dane's did. He knew where he'd help a stranger run if a kid screamed and that scream sounded like his memory. The stage exploded confetti that wouldn't blow this far. The sound system dug into the crowd with bass like a shovel. Dane leaned close. "You feel that?" "Yeah," Rook said. "It's the ground telling us it remembers." "Remembers what?" "How fast we bleed when the rules smile." Dane stared at him for a beat like he could hear the battlefield echo under the sentence. Then he nodded, like men do when they don't want to say, "I respect that, because it scares me." He clapped Rook's shoulder and said, cheerful again, "You hungry?" "I'm getting something greasy enough to survive the apocalypse." Rook let himself be towed by friendship to the food cart. He took a paper boat of fries that had never met a vegetable and ate them slow, feeling the salt bite his tongue and the oil paint his lip. He didn't taste joy. He tasted fuel. He watched the line at the kiosk keep its shape, the way desperate things do when they find an orderly way to be desperate. He didn't mean to think about Afghanistan. His brain did the flash cut anyway. Briefing room projector coughing light, map covered in pins like acne, his CO's voice turning risk into procedure. The hum of the base generator sounded too much like the hum of the city's power grid. The taste of recycled air and old coffee and fear you were ashamed of. The way you made lists when there wasn't a prayer left in your arsenal. He made a list now because his body had learned that discipline. Safe corners he'd cached. Friends who owed him in quiet ways. Places with roof lines you could jump without breaking ankles. Doors with hinges loose enough to surrender without noise. A pawn shop guy who'd hold something for him if he used the right nickname. A kid who'd act as eyes for a sandwich and a story. Rook went back to his bench after Dane disappeared into the tide to flirt, deal, brag, promise, and be alive the way Dane always was because he believed in his own luck like it was a substance. The screen kept cycling the promise, and each cycle felt meaner. The night took on that temperature that comes before a party turns into a fight. He told himself he wouldn't buy a second ticket. He felt the ticket in his pocket like a heat pack on a sore muscle and told himself not to touch it again because superstition is just discipline with better PR. He failed. He touched it. Across the boulevard, a woman had set up a little table with glass jar candles and a hand-lettered sign. Lottery prayers. Write your name. People lined up. They gave her bills and names and hopes like she was an altar. She wrote each name with careful loops and told each person something specific that sounded like a blessing and a dare at once. The police watched and decided prayers were not a crime tonight. Rook stayed until the city started to yawn around the edges. He didn't want the screen to be the last thing he saw before sleep, so he cut down through the side streets and under the ribcage of the overpass, where he had a tarp stashed in a way that made it look like trash if you weren't looking for it. He slid the duffel into the hollow he'd carved in the column, slid himself in after, breathed the cold that kept you honest. He lay there and watched the wheels of the city roll overhead, 2 lanes of controlled chaos that sang themselves to sleep. In the space between trucks, he could see stars trying their best. It made him laugh despite himself. Even the sky wanted a cameo tonight. He took out the ticket and held it up in the dark. It gleamed faintly with reflected streetlight, and for a stupid second he thought it looked like a knife edge. He tucked it back and took the little tin from his duffel, the one with the razors and the rolls of quarters and the whisper of powder that sang a high, clean note in his sinus, and told his mind it could sprint a little before bed. He hesitated, and then didn't. The line went neat. The inhale went neat. The world snapped into hard edges that didn't cut until they did. It made the screen he couldn't see feel brighter anyway. "Not my face," he said to the concrete. The concrete had seen men say more confident things and lose, so it didn't answer. He slept because bodies do, even when minds are rehearsing for disaster. In his dream, he was back in a doorway he'd held with 2 others, heat crawling down his spine under armor, breath tasting like metal. He knew the next shape through the doorway would decide a future, for someone if not for him. The shape came, and it wasn't a man. It was the word billion in that perfect game show font, filling the frame like a joke from a god with bad taste. He raised his weapon and found he was holding nothing but a piece of paper with his name on it. He woke like he'd been shoved. The underside of the overpass vibrated with the first trucks of morning. He rubbed his face and checked the pocket by reflex. The ticket was where it should be. The relief made him angry at himself for caring. He folded the tarp small and tucked it deep. He drank the last of the thermos cold and bitter and useful. He walked back to the corner where the kiosk had patiently waited all night, where the line changed crews but not size, where the hope remained the same even if the clothes changed for work. People had gone home to sleep it off. People had stayed out to sharpen something. The city smelled like it always did in the morning. Not the things Rook refused to list anymore, but heat and water and spice and small fires burning somewhere just out of sight. A bus actually stopped at the bench by accident, and 3 people sprinted like they'd been training all their lives. The driver looked shocked, then smug, then bored. Rook stood across from the screen and watched it roll through ads like it hadn't promised violence all night. Insurance, a sneaker drop, a soft drink proving its softness. Then again, the promise in letters that had a teethy shine even in daylight. Tomorrow. 5. 48 hours after that. 1. He breathed in and told himself facts. If his face went up, the city would become smaller, the corners sharper, time quicker, trust thinner. If Dane's face went up, the first thing Rook would do is drag him to a hide he wouldn't brag about. If both their faces went up, the city would become a map he didn't have to unfold to read. If neither did, a different hunger would open its mouth. He knew which he preferred. He hated that he knew. By late afternoon, pop-up bookmakers had moved from whispers to signage. Names were chalked on blackboards with odds that had no science behind them, except the very human one. People bet on faces they didn't know yet, like the market itself was a mask they could try on. Blunts went around, rails went down, hearts sped, hands itched. The world pulled itself tight in anticipation like an elastic about to choose a direction. Rook went where he always went when the city got too loud. Nowhere in particular, just motion that looked like purpose. He tightened his laces, pulled his coat close, palmed the edge of his ticket, and rehearsed walking. When the sky laid its last thin sheet of light over concrete and steel, the screens bloomed again, and the MC reappeared in a jacket that suggested expensive sin. The city leaned forward as one animal. "Tomorrow," he said, all good teeth and promise. "5 will rise." Rook felt his mouth say a word he didn't mean to say. "Move." He moved. He didn't know yet if he was moving toward the hunt or away from it. He knew only that stillness had started to feel like a target, and he had learned long ago to dislike being an easy one. Morning arrived late and gray, like it owed the night money and didn't want to be seen. The big screen across the avenue had gone to ads, as if selling sneakers could rinse last night's promise out of concrete. It couldn't. The words still clung to the air, softer now, but everywhere, like confetti stuck to a wet shoe, like a hook stuck under the skin of a song. Rook stood in a laundromat doorway for the heat and watched the block reassemble itself into daytime shapes. Night people converted. The party glitter dulled to last shift residue. The lips went dry. The walk lost its music. The kiosk line didn't shrink much. It just changed faces. Delivery drivers, lab coats, office types practicing neutrality. A grandmother with a cane and a baseball cap that read, "Blessed but petty," tipped an envelope into the slot with a precision that looked like she'd counted twice in a quiet kitchen. He checked himself. It was a habit from a life that demanded rituals. He patted the inner pocket. Ticket still there. He pressed fingers to the small tin wedged in the duffel side sleeve, still shut. He rolled one shoulder, then the other. The ache in his left scapula woke up on schedule, a metronome that didn't care about bills or prayers. He tightened his bootlaces, twice each, and breathed through the ghost of the desert, the one that sometimes came in with the morning cold. "Coffee, man?" a voice asked. Rook glanced down. Little Ty, 16 going on rough, held up a paper cup with steam like fog. Kid wore a jacket 2 sizes too small over a hoodie 2 sizes too big, the fashion math of budgets and hand-me-downs. His knuckles were scabbed crescents. He didn't hide them. "Trade," Rook said. "4?" Ty's eyes sparked. That look, always ready to become a hustle. "Eyes," Rook said. "You see Dane?" Ty smirked. Saw him lose money he didn't have and flirt with somebody already taken. Classic, he in one piece. "Mostly," Ty said. "I can find him after school. If I go, you won't," Rook said. "I might," Ty said, but they both knew he wouldn't. Not today. Rook took the cup. The heat bit his palm in a way that told the truth. He sipped, grimaced, burnt, bitter, perfect. "You want the job?" "Depends," Ty said, chin up. 2 hours of looking, Rook said. "If you see Dane, tell him. Don't be visible today. If his face hits the screen, be somewhere with 2 exits and nothing to brag about. If it's not him, still be somewhere like that." "You expecting me to find a library?" Ty grinned. "I'm expecting you to use your brain instead of your mouth," Rook said. "You got more of the first than you show." Ty's grin tightened into a real smile. "I can do that." "Good." Rook clicked his tongue twice, the sound he used to call a stray dog once upon a better time. "And Ty?" "Yeah? If somebody waves a quick money job at you today, don't. Quick money at a time like this cost interest you don't see till you're paying with skin." "Chill," Ty said, palms out like the universal gesture for relax. "I ain't stupid." "Stupid's not required," Rook said. "Just hungry." The kid nodded in the way kids do when they don't want to admit adults know things. He drifted off with that side-to-side glide of boys who practice being ghosts among grown men's mistakes. Rook watched him go, finished the coffee, and left the laundromat doorway before anybody accused him of loitering. He had learned, places that tolerated you needed you to prove you could leave. He aimed his morning at the river first. Some rivers give cities romance. This one gave it a conscience, shallow as it was. He walked along the fence that kept bad swimmers from making grief. He checked 3 stashes without looking like he was checking. A rolled-up wool cap inside a busted drain pipe, a box cutter in a magnetic clip under a bench slat, a flash drive taped inside a loose brick no one cared about. He left them where they were. He wasn't superstitious, but he respected preparedness like a religion. On the walk back, he passed a storefront church with a sandwich board that read, "Finals Week Prayer, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. All welcome." A tired voice inside sang a melody older than the block. He paused. He didn't go in. He crossed at the light and missed a car by a foot because the driver had his face in his phone and a bump on his key staring back at him. The driver braked too late, mouthed sorry without heat, and drove off. Rook rotated his wrist once, twice. It worked. Good. He found Dane near noon, exactly where a man would be if he thought the entire city should turn its head when he walked. The corner by the discount denim store, the loudest hoodie in the county, 2 women laughing because he'd earned the laugh even though they knew better. He had a blunt tucked behind one ear and another already at half-life in his hand. A salt line dusted his nostril. His pupils looked like dark coins fallen into wells. "You look awake," Rook said. "I am the sunrise," Dane said, throwing arms wide. "We in the pre-game, big brother. Tonight? Names up, faces out. The air feel like lottery tickets and lighters." "Air feels like ambulances warming the engine," Rook said. Dane pointed the blunt at his chest. "That's why I love you. You keep the world honest, but listen." He leaned in, lower voice. "If it's me, I'm doing numbers." Rook stared. "Numbers? Streams, deals, pay-per-view, follow a target for 20 minutes. I'll flip the hunt into merch. They gonna chase me anyway. Might as well sell the route." "You sell the route," Rook said. "You die before you can count." "Not if I'm moving," Dane said. "And you know I move." He lifted the blunt. "Hit, or you cleaning your soul today." Rook took it. The leaf was good again. Dane liked his raps like he liked his chaos. Premium. Rook pulled, let the smoke ease behind his eyes, hand the blunt back, and cut through the cast of characters orbiting Dane with a nod that meant family, not fan. "Do me a favor," Rook said. "Pretend you listened to the version of me that crawled out of yesterday still breathing." "Which part of him?" "The part that knows corners and the part that counts doors." Rook pointed with his chin. "When the show starts, find somewhere ugly, basement ugly, laundry room ugly, nothing to post, no mirror, no shiny, 2 exits, 3 if you get blessed." Dane's smile dimmed a watt. He had heard the quiet in Rook's voice only a few times. "You think it could be me?" he said. "I think it will be someone," Rook said. "I don't need to be surprised by who." "You really think I'd cut alive and brag?" Dane said, offended on cue. "I really think you love applause," Rook said, and Dane laughed again because truth delivered with affection is a drug men like him can take without rehab. A pop-up bookmaker 2 doors down slapped fresh chalk up. Name, Dane. Odds, 20 to 1. Dane squinted. "Aw, hell," he said, half proud, half annoyed. "Now I gotta switch blocks. They playing with me." "Or," Rook said, "you let 'em, and you move the other way." "You sound like you rehearsed that." "I have," Rook said, "in different uniforms." They drifted together, the way unarmed men move when the day might ask them to become something else. At a bodega window TV, a talk show panel argued with staged passion about morality and spectacle. A reverend in a dark suit called the lottery state-sponsored desperation. A slick-haired conciliere type said it was just an extreme scholarship with sharp elbows. A woman with perfect hair said she was concerned for the children, and then asked for the camera to find her good side. The host smiled like a substitute teacher who had survived. Rook turned away before the segment ended. He didn't want the TV teaching him its version of his street. He and Dane leaned on a graffiti-bit wall and let the city rub past. A man with the twitch-quick movements of fresh rails bounced to a stop in front of them, eyes wide, mouth already running. You two parole or freelance, he blurted. Say again? Dane said, amused. Security, hunters, whatever. You look like men who pick a side and do it before lunch. Pick yours, Rook said. Me? The man laughed like a door slamming. I'm a businessman. I got product, I got runners, I got cameras that don't mind the dark. I need escort. Tonight about to be wild. I'll pay. Dane raised an eyebrow. Rook said, No. You didn't let me say how much, the man said. You didn't need to, Rook said. I heard you say cameras. The man's jaw worked. His tongue pressed his cheek in a way that made violence feel 3 inches away. He looked at Dane instead. You then? Dane shook his head. He already said our no. The man snorted. 2 saints, he sneered, and drifted back into the swarm, hunting cheaper muscle and less philosophy. See, Dane said. That's easy money. That's rented death, Rook said. They were still there when 2 patrol cars rolled through without lights, that official swerve that said, we see you even when we say we don't. The cops let the windows down 2 inches. The look from the driver told a story. We tired. Don't make us perform. Not until the cameras turn. Dane lifted his chin. Rook looked at his boots. The cars eased on, dissatisfied not to have found a reason to stop. By mid-afternoon, the city vibrated. Most days have a key. This one had 2, money and blood. People tuned to one or both. Rook tuned to survival, which borrowed from both when necessary and disrespected both when needed. He passed a pharmacy line that stretched to the corner. Stimulants ran low when $1 billion was promised tomorrow. He passed a smoke shop loud with laughter, blunt wraps stacked like small currency behind glass. He passed a corner where a woman braided hair with a rhythm that would outlive everybody's odds. He let the sight of the braids calm his jaw. He didn't know why it worked, only that it did. He checked in on Ty. The kid perched on a stoop 2 blocks over, feigning boredom while his eyes scanned like a camera. Dane moved again, Ty said before Rook asked. Left the bookie chalk up on purpose. I think he wants the odds to get worse, so if he wins it feels bigger. Rook grunted. That's Dane math. And you? Ty flicked a glance at the coat pocket. You gonna watch the screen close when they pull names? Close enough, Rook said, to move if I must. You think they really pay out? Ty asked. He tried to sound cynical. He failed. The question had child in it. I think they pay for spectacle, Rook said. Pay doesn't mean pay you. Ty nodded like he'd put that sentence in his own words. You hear the story, he said in a rush, about the guy 10 years ago who made it to the 47th hour and then caught a heart attack in front of the door. Rook swallowed a curse. I heard versions. I heard his cousin say the office was locked till the exact second, and he was banging on it, and they just watched. Don't repeat that, Rook said, too quick. Why? Because it'll make somebody go in guns first, Rook said. And you might be standing next to that somebody when they decide to be a hero. Ty looked at him, then nodded slowly, as if he could feel the echo of a training room in his tone. Okay, he said. I keep my mouth small. And your eyes big, Rook said. 2 hours, then home. I ain't got one, Ty said. Wherever you sleep then, Rook corrected, and lock something. The afternoon bled into evening with the slow ceremony of a city putting on its favorite outfit. Lights came on in windows that preferred the dark. Speakers migrated to stoops. People who didn't like one another very much tolerated each other because the mutual enemy tonight was the future. The screen overhead cut to a countdown at the top of the hour. 020000. The crowd made a noise low enough to register in bones. Rook stood across the street from the main crush, half in shadow, half in reflected glow. He didn't want hot lights on his face. He didn't want his mouth caught moving without permission. Dane materialized at his elbow like a bad magic trick gone right. 2 hours, Dane said. I got a spot. Basement? Rook asked. Ugly, Dane said. Laundry room ugly. One exit and a window that lies about being an exit. Not good enough, Rook said. It'll be fine, Dane said lightly. You say that, Rook said. You make liars work. Dane tapped the pocket with his ticket. Old men and their sayings, he teased. And Rook didn't argue, because the city chose that moment to raise its volume a notch. The countdown ticked to 90 minutes. Vendors who'd been casual all day turned sharp. The drone flock doubled. Police presence increased by simply existing. You could feel the training manuals opening somewhere in the precinct. Rook slid back into the alley behind the corner store and used the quiet to make his last checks. He kept his knife where his hand loved it. Short blade, ugly handle, no romance. He tuned his breath shorter, the way you do when you don't want your chest to telegraph panic. He pressed 2 fingers against the inside of his wrist, counting until the beat stopped trying to sprint. You pray? Dane had asked him once on a different night with different stakes. No, Rook had said. I list. He listed now. Locate water, avoid bottlenecks, never be the loudest shadow. If it's you, don't run straight. If it's not, leave anyway. If a kid screams, ignore the camera. Keys go between fingers. Don't bleed indoors. Don't be brave for applause. By the time the countdown hit 30 minutes, the MC on the stage in the expensive district had done 3 costume changes and 2 jokes that the crowd pretended to find funny. Here, people were done with jokes. A man in a puffer jacket unzipped and revealed a chest harness of knives arranged like cutlery in a mad kitchen. A woman with nails like tiny sculptures slid one across her thumb and watched the bead of red with a scientist's interest. 2 brothers compared .380s and argued about whether heavy triggers were safer. Rook cut left to avoid the line of sight. 15 minutes. 10. The chant returned on schedule, an ugly beauty, a heartbeat learned in the womb of a place that has practiced fear for generations. Bloody Bill Lyons, Bloody Bill Lyons. Dane was gone, by plan or impulse. Rook didn't worry. Worry was noise. He moved to the lip of a loading dock where he could watch without being watched hard. He put his palm to his chest and felt the ticket again, a dumb tactile superstition he couldn't ditch. He took the tin from the duffel, opened it, and considered. He didn't need calm. He needed focus. He cut the line neat again, just enough to sharpen, not enough to flight. It drew a wire down his spine and plucked it. The screen went black. You could hear the hush land. A slow swell of strings, the kind you only hear at award shows and funerals, rose through the speakers and crawled up the block. The logo bloomed. The lottery returns. Bloody billions. The MC appeared in a suit so bright it made teeth look dull. He did the warm smile. He did the clap that said family. He did the voice like a promised check. Tonight, he said, we draw. Rook leaned forward an inch. It felt like a mile. The stage cut to a tall, transparent drum, balls inside it with numbers that meant names, the way bureaucracies always build distance between the thing and the hand that does it. 2 officials stood on either side like bouncers. A woman in a gown that was both tasteful and expensive put her hand on a lever. The crowd on the other side of the screen roared. The crowd here roared louder to prove it could. Before we begin, the MC said, a word from our sponsors. The city groaned as one organism. Rook almost laughed. The ad ran anyway, insurance selling safety to a night choosing danger, a delivery app offering comfort, a glitzy sneaker spot featuring a star player promising greatness if you purchased air. 3 minutes later, the drum spun. The balls thumped like storm hail. Here we go, the MC said. Our first selection. He reached in, made a show of not looking, drew a ball, handed it to the official, who handed it to the screen. The camera zoomed, the number amplified, the database churned. The name appeared with the speed and certainty of a god that liked paperwork. Rook didn't breathe. The name wasn't his. Someone in the crowd screamed anyway, recognition or terror or both. A block and a half away, a firework cracked and fell back to earth without style. The camera cut to the person's face, pulled from a license photo, then from a social feed, then from somewhere else because nobody's privacy mattered anymore. The city took the image and swallowed it. Rook's ribs started again. Second selection. He didn't notice leaning forward this time. Felt only the pull, the ball, the handoff, the screen, the name. Not his. A woman near the front fainted in relief or rage. Two men hugged even though they hated hugging. Somebody threw money in the air and refused to pick it up. A bookie wrote new odds so fast the chalk broke. Third. Not his. Each not his didn't feel like safety. It felt like a tightening of the coil, more probability packed into less future. He rolled his neck and made the vertebrae complain lightly. He checked the left, the right. If it wasn't him, he should still move before the crowd lost its balance. Fourth. Not his. Dane? Rook scanned the immediate faces for a smile that was trying too hard, for a panic stuck under a laugh. He didn't find him. He found Ty on a mailbox. Small body, tall with concentration. Eyes huge, mouth small. Rook nodded once. Ty didn't see it, too busy memorizing fate. Fifth. The strings in the background swelled. The MC's voice pitched itself into magic. The woman in the gown did the lean, the hand, the draw. The ball slid like a pearl in a throat. Rook pressed his tongue to his teeth hard enough to taste copper. The official lifted the number in both hands like a sacrament and turned it to the camera. The database churned and spat. A name. The face, grainy DMV glare, flooded the screen, then a better version from someone's party, then a worse one from a fight that no one remembered who started. The image got sharper. The crowd's intake of breath made air flee. Rook blinked, slow. Not his. The city paused, as if confused by not getting the joke it had expected. Then it howled. People who knew one of the names screamed like they'd been picked for heaven. People who recognized another screamed like hell just personalized their address. The block erupted into a choreographed chaos, bookies shouting new numbers, hustlers selling news, men grabbing women for kisses that were not always wanted, women shoving men back with hands that meant it. The police decided to be official and tightened formation. The drones dropped lower, hungry bees smelling sugar and blood. Rook didn't clap, didn't boo, didn't do anything that might be remembered by a camera later. He felt his heart slow in increments. The relief felt wrong. It felt like being spared by a coin flip in a game where you'd already bought chips. He wanted to find Dane, drag him ugly side, shut down his desire to monetize his own danger. Then the screen shifted. The MC smiled a different smile. And now, he said, as a courtesy to our hunters and a warning to our winners, we present live locations as last pinged. The block shut up like it remembered manners. Dots appeared on a city map. 5 red, pulsing. The crowd surged toward the screen as if physical proximity could reduce the distance between them and those dots. Rook went cold. He didn't plan the movement. The movement planned him. He slid off the loading dock, cut behind a dumpster where the smell could hide a man, crossed under the overhang that made a strange echo if you ran, and slid along the fence line toward shadows that had trained with him when he'd worn a name stitched over his heart. He wasn't on that screen, but the hunt had begun anyway. And hunts had perimeter damage. He felt the city shift from rehearsal to performance, felt the rehearsed rage find a lane and gun it. The first siren of the night wailed with purpose. He had one job left before the chapter closed on its own: find Dane. If Dane had been picked, get him gone. If Dane hadn't, get him gone anyway, because men like Dane loved a disaster the way moths love light. Rook cut through noise and into the kind of quiet you had to earn. The back hall behind a shuttered bar, the stoop nobody used because a dog used it first, the narrow run between buildings where graffiti died from lack of audience. He could feel the billion breathing, an animal that didn't care whose body it climbed out of. He put a palm to the brick and felt the city's pulse running faster than his. He told his own to match it only when it helped, not when it wanted to. The first scream Rook heard wasn't terror. It was joy. The jagged, unkind kind. The sound of a block realizing somebody else's life just became a jackpot to split. Then the other screams came layered over it, the cut-glass pitch of somebody recognizing a face on the screen. The ugly hoot of men who liked the idea of sport with witnesses. The low, guttering sound of shock when probability turned into a target. He moved. Not fast, not slow. Correct. The loading dock lip, the alley with the bent fence, the blind corner with the brick that liked to snag jackets, the back door that never latched if you kissed it right. The map in his head wasn't a GPS. It was muscle memory, a dance you pulled out when the music tried to kill you. "Dane," he hissed into an echo that used to be a bar's delivery hall. "Answer with words I can use." A flashlight beam licked the far wall and slid away as a cop pivoted the sidewalk. Rook flattened, counted under his breath, slipped through the gap, and crossed into the courtyard behind a shuttered laundromat, laundry room ugly, just like Dane had promised. A single dusty window stared down at him. A liar of an exit, if ever there was one. The door opened an inch. Dane's eye filled it, wide and glittering. He unlocked 3 things he'd probably watched someone else lock and yanked Rook inside. "You took your time," Dane said, breath sweet with leaf and something colder. "You moved where I told you," Rook said, scanning. Concrete floor, dead machines, vents that groaned like old men blessed with gossip. 1 exit, 1 liar window, a maintenance hatch that maybe led to an alley or maybe to a mouse convention. "I need you flatter and quieter." Dane held up both hands. "I know you're about to say no phone, and I respect that, but if I don't stream, half the city thinks I disappeared. If you do stream," Rook said, "the other half thinks you're bait." Dane grimaced, the expression of a man who knew he was wrong and hated the feeling. He shoved the phone into a lint-clogged drawer, then immediately pulled it back out to kill every alert. "Compromise," he said. "Airplane mode. Nothing in, nothing out. Better," Rook said. Somewhere close, glass broke, not the crash of an accident, the sharp, tidy smash of a choice. A chorus of voices rose, then thinned, the way sound does when attention focuses on one body. Rook felt more than heard a scuffle compress. He stepped to the door and eased it an inch. Across the narrow lot, a group had tackled someone under the big screen's pale wash. Not one of the 5 faces he'd just seen. This was a look-alike, or worse, a nobody with a hat that suggested somebody. They had him pinned between mailbox and curb, hands everywhere, voices climbing over each other. The kind of panic that uses money as an excuse to be cruel. "Wrong guy," Rook murmured. Dane leaned over his shoulder. "City don't do refunds," he said, but there wasn't humor in it. The crowd parted just enough to see a boot rise. Rook closed the door. He didn't write prayers and he didn't offer help he couldn't finish. "You made your saves count, or you ran out of them too early." "What's the move?" Dane asked, quiet now that something human had been witnessed and he'd remembered the bill for the night. "Hide, then glide," Rook said. "This room for an hour. When the first wave swallows itself, we move to the river route. If your name wasn't on that screen, you don't want to be seen at all. Folks looking for the 5 are clumsy. Folks looking for whoever looks like money. That's messier." Dane nodded like a student reluctantly impressed by a hard class. He found a rolling cart and wedged it against the door low, where it mattered. Rook flicked the breaker panel. Dead. Perfect. 2 machines hummed anyway, some old phantom electricity feeding them. He unplugged them so their ghosts didn't give away their breathing. Dane sat on a washer, elbows on knees. "You think they really show live pings?" he asked. "Like, accurate? "Accurate enough to get a crowd running the wrong direction," Rook said. "Accurate enough to keep the night a TV show." "Then the 5 are moving, right now." "Everybody's moving right now." Dane looked at his hands and hated them for being empty. He patted his pockets the way men do who need to audition for the next thing. "You ever wish they'd picked you?" Rook stared at him. Ask me tomorrow." "We ain't promised that," Dane said, and they both took the truth in like medicine that burned. The city outside hit a new key. Sirens not just passing, but parking. Doors opening, public address voices doing that calm that makes people more scared. The drone hum thickened, more of them, lower, hungry. Rook could feel the building's bones vibrate with it. Dane lit a blunt, the leaf flaring, the ember a tiny planet in the dim. Rook took it when offered. The smoke didn't soothe him so much as sandpaper his edges into shapes he could use. He exhaled into his sleeve. Footsteps, more than one set. The kind of cadence you get when adrenaline and shoes meet old tile. Rook held up a finger. Dane killed the ember with spit, tucked the blunt into the crease of his ear, and breathed through his nose like a boxer trying to hide fatigue. The footsteps paused outside their door. "Basement," someone said, voice close. "Laundry." A knuckle knocked, polite, theatrical. The handle jiggled. The rolling cart held. Silence that meant listening. Rook pointed to the maintenance hatch, a square of rust in the back corner. Dane squinted at it and shook his head like you shake at a bad bet. Rook crouched, slid his blade under the hatch lip, and pried slow. The screws complained in a language he didn't like. He stopped. The door jiggled again, harder this time. A shoulder hit it. Not cop shoulder, amateur shoulder, too high, too fast. The cart shivered an inch. A laugh. Another shoulder. The screws in the latch shrieked. Rook stood and moved without noise. He wrapped the washer's drain hose around the cart handle and yanked, binding wheel to frame. He grabbed a dryer door, opened it, braced it against the cart to give the flimsy thing a spine. He nodded at Dane. Dane nodded back, eyes big now, all streamers gone from the voice in his head. A voice from beyond the door, drunk on new rules. "Winners inside?" "We only need proof, brothers. Come on now. Community service." Rook stepped left of the knob. He put his back to the wall so the first man in would see nothing and see it too late. Dane slid right. He pulled the tin from his pocket by instinct. Rook shook his head once. Dane put it away. He pulled the blunt instead and stuck it between his teeth unlit like a talisman. Another slam. The latch gave up. The door cracked and stuck against the cart. A face appeared in the gap, wild eyes, a gash of a smile that had nothing in it but future tense greed. A hand pushed through with a knife in it, the blade short and ugly, the handle wrapped in duct tape that smelled like closings. The hand flexed for show. Rook moved first. His blade bit the wrist, not deep, precise. The hand spasmed and the knife clinked to tile. The face made a noise between pain and surprise. A second hand reached through blindly and clawed for the fallen knife. Dane stomped it once, heel down, the crack loud in a way that felt like it might travel farther than sound should. The second hand became a second scream. "Back up," someone said from outside. Different voice, sober, dangerous. Rook imagined a leader who liked to let the new ones bruise themselves first. "Two inside," the first voice panted. "One of 'em cut me." "They think they smart. We don't need both," the sober voice said, patient as a butcher with a watch. A pause that contained decision. Rook breathed in through his teeth, out through his nose. He could hold this room, but the room wasn't the point. Rooms didn't save you. Roots did. He nodded at Dane, then at the hatch again. Dane went to his knees, jammed fingers under the lip with a hiss, and pried. The metal yelped. Outside, a body hit the door. The cart jumped. The dryer door bit Rook's shin. He swallowed a curse. The hatch came up an inch, then 3. A smell of damp concrete and old soap and mouse breath rose. Dane looked at the hole like a man staring at a confession he didn't mean to make. "You first," Rook said. Dane slid the blunt behind his ear, dropped to his belly, and wriggled in. The hole swallowed his shoulders, then his hips. His sneakers vanished like a magic trick that didn't want applause. The door gave another inch. A different knife scritched along the gap, hunting skin. Rook stayed still and let it hunt air. He counted the slow 1, 2, 3, let the knife overextend, and struck. Fast, mean, the way muscle remembers when teaching won't do. The blade bit knuckles, the knife dropped again. The sober voice cursed softly, the way real threats do when their toys misbehave. "Come in then," Rook said to the crack, voice so calm it scared him. "See how long you last in my small room." Silence. Even the building held its breath. Then the sober voice laughed, not cruelly exactly, professionally. "We'll wait," he said. "Starve you out, or we'll light it up. Your choice." "Your matches don't work here," Rook said, eyes on the hole. "Lint burns mean." He heard the sober man consider the lesson, heard him decide he believed it enough to pick a different toy. Dane's hand appeared in the hatch, fingers for him. Rook took them, dropped to his chest, and slid in sideways. The door slammed again as if it could catch his feet. He felt tile instead. The maintenance tunnel was a concrete throat barely wider than a man's shoulders. Dust rose like a memory. He pulled the hatch down above them and kicked the latch with the edge of his shoe. It slid into place with a quiet that felt like a gift. Dark. Good. Rook loved dark that belonged to him. Dane breathed loud for 3 counts, then got religion and quieted. "Left or right?" he whispered. "Right goes toward the alley with the always sleeping dog," Rook said. "Left goes under the corner store and out by the fryer vent." "Fryer vent means smell and noise and cover left," Dane said. They crawled. The tunnel scraped whispers off their jackets. Somewhere above, feet argued. A bass line from someone's party found its way down like prayer. The air changed temperature watching them, colder, wetter, nearer to street. The vent grill was held by 2 rusted screws and hope. Rook pressed. One screw surrendered, the other hissed it had seniority and refused. Dane produced a coin, thick and heavy. "Souvenir," he whispered. "Use it." They worked together until the screw gave up on being stubborn and became part of the past. Dane eased the grill away, caught it before it spoke, slid it aside. They peered out at a narrow cut between buildings, a 3-foot canyon of oil stain and drop things. The fryer vent coughed heat above them, spitting out the smell of salt and batter and saved lives. 2 men argued at the mouth of the cut about whether the dot on the map meant block or building. Rook touched Dane's shoulder and pointed to the opposite mouth. Dane nodded. They slid out and went low, hands finding purchase in textures that could have told stories if they weren't busy being floor. The argument at the near mouth climbed an octave. "Block! Block, I told you." And they froze as a third voice joined, this one waving a pistol in its syllables. The pistol voice moved away, authority with flight risk. Rook counted 3 more, then pushed Dane's back. They oozed to the far mouth and looked left, then right. The left had a camera eye over a back door. The right had a rolling gate 2 feet off the ground, just enough to slide, just enough to skin a cheekbone if you weren't born small. Rook slid first. The gate kissed his back with old metal. Dane inhaled wrong and choked on dust. Rook clamped a hand over his mouth and held it an inch from silence. On the other side, the street was 1 block quieter, not peaceful, just differently loud. They stood, brushed grit, became taller. "River," Rook said. "Copy," Dane said, and then stopped, eyes on something Rook hadn't clocked. In the window reflection, a shape moved up behind them fast. Rook pivoted into it, grabbed a wrist he knew was holding something, and used the wall for leverage the way only people with bad knees learn to do. The man hit the ground with a sound like a promise breaking. The knife skittered, kissed the curb, tried to become part of the scene. Dane kicked it under a car. "Wrong block," Rook told the man. "Wrong night," the man spat. "You think you heroes," he said through teeth that had fought and lost before. "You ain't on the screen. You ain't even worth—" Rook tapped his cheek with 2 fingers. "Look at me. Learn this, staying alive is my only job. It ain't pretty, it ain't public." He could feel something inside him sliding back into the groove it hated. Command voice, battlefield lens. He let a little of it out because you choose your tools or they choose you. You go home. If you can find home. You play tomorrow with whatever's left of you, but you don't play here." The man tried a bravado smile. It leaked. He scrambled back on his hands and heels, eyes flicking to the gate like it might apologize for being in the way. He ran. Rook didn't watch him go. "Somebody's going to die in the next 5 minutes," Dane said, and it didn't sound like prophecy so much as math. "They already did," Rook said. "They moved. The river route was what it always was. Chain-link fences with sections that slacked if you pulled right, grass that lied about hiding footprints, light poles that flickered coincidence, angles you learned if you needed to vanish without screaming help first." Rook took them along the shadow edge, the line where the night liked you. There were scenes along the way, snapshots caught in streetlight and blown past. A girl ripping down a poster with one of the 5 faces and tearing it in frantic quarters as if paper could bleed. A group of men in basic black pretending to be professionals, moving in a diamond that would get them killed because diamonds look good on camera. A pair of strangers tucked into a doorway, kissing like grief, eyes open. At the river fence, Rook used a piece of wire he kept behind the 3rd post to make a new hole in an old one. Dane slid through with a grunt, then turned to help Rook, for once acting like teamwork was a flavor he could stomach. They took the service path under the bridge, where the city's hum turned into a sky of a different kind. "Little Ty?" Dane asked suddenly. "Working the block," Rook said, which answered nothing and everything. They reached the underpass Rook loved for its indifference. He ducked into the column's hollow and pulled the duffel from its throat. He'd cached a second tarp farther in, a blanket rolled inside it, a small bottle of water wrapped in a sock to keep it quieter. He handed Dane the water. Dane drank like a man remembering thirst. "You stay," Rook said. "1 hour. If your name wasn't drawn, the first wave isn't about you. It'll pass, and a new stupid will replace it. We'll move when the stupid tires." "And you?" Dane said. "I got to find Ty," Rook said, as if the sentence had been waiting all night and just needed a mouth. Dane nodded, no joke left. He lay down on the tarp like the ground might judge him. His eyes looked too bright. His hands, always talking, finally settled. "Rook," he said as the city breathed over them. "If it had been your face—" "I'd still be moving," Rook said, "only faster." Dane laughed, small, real. "You think the billion is real?" he asked, staring up at the underside of the bridge as if it might answer. "I think the danger is," Rook said. "Sometimes that's the only real we get." Dane closed his eyes. Rook watched his chest make the right figure across a minute. Above them, the night changed channels. Sirens near became sirens far. The chant ebbed and returned in pockets. Somewhere the MC yelled about responsibility between ads. The drones adjusted altitude like birds, deciding whether rain was worth it. Rook slid back out into the cold that loved him. He kept his body low, because low bodies live. He let the ticket in his pocket catch his knuckles and remind him that not getting picked didn't mean not being hunted. He took the path that let him see the street before the street saw him. At the edge of the neighborhood, the map had branded with a red dot. He stopped. He didn't want to be near one of the 5. He wanted to be near a child who thought he was a lookout instead of a boy. He found Ty 3 blocks off the main avenue, perched on a mailbox again, the pose of a hawk who had taught itself city. "Off!" Rook said. Ty hopped down like he'd been caught stealing from a jar. "I was leaving. I swear, I was just looking," Rook said. "Come on." "Where?" Ty asked. "Somewhere ugly." They moved 2 blocks without talking. Behind them, a cheer, then the kind of silence that follows a body making a sound that can't be made twice. Ty flinched. Rook didn't let the flinch live. "What do you need to know?" Rook said, the teacher in his voice so old it didn't creak. "That you'll still be here tomorrow," Ty said before he could pretend a different answer. Rook exhaled through his nose. "I'm stubborn." "Stubborn's not bulletproof," Ty said, attempting adult. "Neither is foolish," Rook answered, "but it's louder." They reached the utility yard with the padlocked gate that pretended to matter. Rook made the lock remember how much it liked opening. Inside, shadows were long and uninterested. He pointed to a shack with a broken hinge. Inside, no light. If you hear fireworks, don't clap. Ty peered at him. What if it's one of the 5 out there and I could— No, Rook said, and the word had weight. Ty swallowed it like medicine and went inside without more argument than a boy his age was allowed to show. Rook turned back to the river. He counted steps. He counted breaths. He counted choices. Behind him, the city burst into another chorus, the loud, cruel cheer that tells you a camera is close and somebody is doing something their future will hate. Above him, the screen bathed blocks in cold light and friendly fonts. In his pocket, the ticket didn't get heavier. He had expected it to. He reached the underpass, slid into the column's throat, and listened for Dane's breath. It was a little too fast, but it was still breath. He sat with his back to concrete and let the night write on him without using ink that would stain. He didn't pray. He listed, then let the list set. Tomorrow would get its title. Tonight was still the announcement. The world had done what it always does when given permission. It acted like itself, only louder. Rook closed his eyes and didn't sleep. He wasn't brave. He was ready. Sometimes those wore the same jacket.